Yes, we have just started recording, and a very good afternoon to one and all present here. Just a second, there's some technical issues here. Right. A very good afternoon, everyone. A very warm welcome to our distinguished guests and esteemed members of our institution. Our Secretary, Mr. Udan Kumar Chodia, Associate Secretary, Mr. Hemant P. Chodia, our Principal, Dr. Anant Narayan, Vice Principal, Dr. Elangovan, Dean, Dr. M. Ramya, Deputy Dean, Dr. R. Sureka, the Head of the Department of Defense and Strategic Studies, Mr. Gaurav Pandey, our dedicated faculty members, research scholars, and of course, our students whose curiosity and enthusiasm make events like this truly meaningful. Today, the Department of Defense and Strategic Studies brings together two of the most distinguished voices in international security and strategic affairs for a timely and important conversation. ASEAN 2045, navigating ASEAN in the midst of geopolitical rivalry in the Indo-Pacific. As the Indo-Pacific moves to the center of global strategic attention yet again, we could not have asked for a more relevant discussion or a more qualified pair of panelists to lead it. So to begin with, we have our first panelist, Professor Dr. Anak Agung Banyu Perwita, who is a professor of international relations at the Republic of Indonesia Defense University, Jakarta, a leading scholar in security, defense diplomacy, and Indo-Pacific affairs. His research spans foreign policy, maritime security, and regional strategic dynamics. He is also an active voice at Indonesia's National Resilience Institute, Lemhanas, and engages regularly with the country's highest policy and security bodies, bringing both academic rigor and a real-world policy insight to this discussion. Welcome, Dr. Anak.
Thank
Our,
you very much. Yeah.
our second panelist, Dr. Alok Yadav, is an assistant professor at the Department of Defense and Strategic Studies, Hindu College, Moradabad, UP, India. A doctorate from the University of Allahabad, his research focuses on national security, India's foreign policy, arms control, Southeast Asia, and strategic thought. His work on India's role in the Indo-Pacific and its security partnerships gives him a sharp and nuanced perspective on the very questions we will be exploring today. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to both our distinguished guests.
Thank you, Vibhav.
Thank you very much for the invitations.
Thank you. So anyway, my first question is to Professor Anak. As you have seen that the topic is ASEAN 2045, navigating ASEAN in the midst of geopolitical rivalry in the Indo-Pacific. I found this title rather interesting because we have mentioned it in a more futuristic sense. We are talking about something, let's say, 19 years from now, right? So, for the benefit of the people here, including myself, because I'm not an ASEAN expert, but since we are all seekers of knowledge, we just want to know why ASEAN 2045.
Mhm. So my turn to talk.
Yes, Dr. Anak. My question is why ASEAN 2045?
Okay. Okay. First of all, I would like to thank the invitations for me to talk, even though we have a online meeting, yeah, due to our, let's say, a lot of problems. But I think this is quite event, yeah, for us to, let's say, to have a discussions and interactions on talking about the importance of Southeast Asia. Yeah, and I think, and then later on, I think I would like to also to connect with the Prime Minister Narendra Modi act his policy on why I think you all in India needs to, let's say, to take a look at the importance of ASEAN and Southeast Asia. And you know that ASEAN is the, let's say, many scholars mentioned that, let's say, the best regional security organizations, or let's say regional organizations in the world. But just like to direct it to mentions about the questions. I think you know that the challenges facing the world, I think in most regions and also particular in Southeast Asia today, are very diverse, and it encompasses geopolitical, economic, social, environment, and even security dimensions or security aspects. So these challenges, in our opinion, and I think in my opinion, are connected to each other. So in that context, probably if we are going to talk about the theoretical aspect, I think we have to connect with the regional security regional security complex theory from Barry Boozan. And these challenges are, as I mentioned, has been colored by FUCA: vulnerability, uncertain, complexity, and ambiguity. So, in order for ASEAN to deal with these problems, ASEAN, of course, has also or even has to face this kind of challenges. And last year, in 26th of October 2025, during the ASEAN meeting in Kuala Lumpur under the chairmanship of Malaysia, we has officially released our, let's say, new vision to address all those challenges, named ASEAN 2045, our shared future. So, in by having this kind of, let's say, new vision, our shared future in 2045, ASEAN, as the primary actor between the Indian and the Pacific Oceans, try to always to maintain ASEAN centrality and to balance between, let's say, the great power competitions in the world, especially between US and China. So in that context, we have a lot of, let's say, a very serious regional geopolitical tension, uh, development gap, and not to mention non-traditional threats. And of course, by having this kind of, not to mention also about climate change and food security. So we have a very complicated situation, as I mentioned before, a few car. Then the leader of ASEAN, agreed to release a new vision in order to be able to cope with all these challenges and problems that we are facing today and probably also in the near future. So that will be my first comment, sir, in order to, let's say, to start with the discussion. Thank you.
So just a follow-up to the things that you just said, Professor Anak. What are the biggest geopolitical fault lines that ASEAN is facing currently today with respect to its
Yeah,
stability? I
yeah.
mean, ASEAN itself, I mean, has countries which has its own set of challenges. Like, for instance, you have Myanmar, which is undergoing
Mm-hmm.
a serious civil conflict, right,
Yeah.
between the military junta and the various insurgent groups across the country, and it's not just concentrated in one particular area alone. And then if you go into other parts of the ASEAN, let's say Philippines had been battling hardcore Islamist elements
Yeah.
uh,
Mm-hmm.
down somewhere in the south. So, but I'm sure that there might be far bigger fault lines as well. So, could you just spell out what is the biggest geopolitical fault line?
Yeah. Okay. I think, as you may know quite well, and I think everyone knows about this one, uh, the main, let's say, the main challenge of ASEAN today is about the geopolitical landscape shaping not only ASEAN, of course, but also in any other regions. But for ASEAN future, the geopolitical landscape is increasingly defined by the intensifying with power competitions, middle power maneuvering, and of course, let's say, the problems of in the context of great power competitions, we have to take into account the U.S.-China rivalry as the dominant axis, and of course, this is about the problems, as you mentioned earlier, in South China Sea, and especially also if we are going also to connect with the wider regions in Southeast Asia. But the main problem, of course, in the context of the great power competitions between US and China. Economically, of course, ASEAN states are deeply embedded in China economic orbit. Let's say you can understand about a BRI, Belt Road and Initiative, but in their context, while militarily, some of the countries also quite rely on the US for security assurances, maritime freedom of navigations, and of course institutional legitimacy. Let's say, for example, if we are talking about the one of the member of one or two members of ASEAN, if we are talking about the Philippines, I think so. Philippines is very rely on the security umbrella of the US, and especially when they agree to to sign or to renew what we call as the or what they call as uh, expanded defense cooperation agreement, yeah, or enhanced, yeah. So this is the problems of U.S.-China rivalry, and while at the same time, Philippines always perceive that China is becoming the first man address, especially on the context of the problems in South China Sea. And of course, uh, China, according to Philippines, for example, or many countries in Southeast Asia, we see that, or Philippines see that China's aggressive posture in South China Sea uh, are very is very is one of the concern issue, and also the gray zone tactics against Vietnam and the Philippines, and of course it will also test let's say test the ASEAN solidarity. Meanwhile, as you mentioned, the U.S., especially under the Minister of War, Pete Hegseth, always try to reframing its Indo-Pacific strategy to be more stronger, transactional, and demanding clear alignment. So I think this kind of situations, especially after the Shangri-La dialogue, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, and Pete Hegseth always mentioned that we are going to be in, we are going to try always to be here in the regions by a peace by strength. So I think this will become a very, let's say, a crucial factor on the great power competitions between US and China. So that will be my response to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Anak. Anyway, Dr. Alok, since Professor Anak had said in a very lucid manner the different range of issues that ASEAN faces, the kind of geopolitical fault lines that they have, it would be very interesting to know an Indian perspective on this, and how does India look at issues like this? Like, is it the same, or what would it be? So, could you just throw some light on what India's role has been so far?
Thank you, Vibhav. I will provide only India's view on ASEAN. What is India think about ASEAN? As Professor Amitabh Achar, a strategic thinker of India, has said earlier, ASEAN's greatest achievement is not conflict resolution, but conflict avoidance. There are many conflicts within the ASEAN's nations, but they did not go into war like Israel and Iran, US and others. There are many wars ongoing at that this time, like Ukraine, but ASEAN is work like as a miracle in this era. No inter conflict has been changed in war. They are limited only. They avoidance the every conflict with dialogue. That is the greatest miracle has ASEAN done in this 21st century. As I started working on ASEAN in my PG, and that time India's greatest, largest trading partner was ASEAN, and until now, India's largest trading partner is ASEAN, and in that, uh, Indonesia is the biggest, and not only uh, trading, we will say 3C: commerce, culture, and connectivity. That will be boost and secure the future of ASEAN and Indo-Pacific region. As India launched a policy earlier, Sagar, security and growth for all in the region, and now it's change in Mahasagar, mutual and holistic advancement of the Sagar. India respect each country's sovereignty, cooperation, and freedom. As India launched many policies like as strategic autonomy, and whereas Indonesia and ASEAN are work in India's in interdependence and foreign policy, and Independent foreign policy and interdependence. If the India wants to not a big role, not want to play as a big brother role, but want to play a mutual cooperation and interdependence theory. As India continue follow its policy, as there is many trade deals and connectivity like IMT highway, India Myanmar Thailand highway, which will boost connectivity with ASEAN. There are nearly 1,000 flights daily connects that with ASEAN countries, and if the ASEAN is fourth 4 US trillion US dollar economy, which will boost India's economy if this connectivity go well. As there is another privilege that ASEAN's long-term vision will be regional development and perhaps the emergence of new global order. India will play a moderate role, which not as a play as a coercive power, but India will play as mutual power, which will play as role to stabilize the region, not like the China, which always use coercive power with uh, like Philippines and Vietnam. India always wants dialogue, like India wants to develop ports in Indonesia, Sablang port and Andaman port, which are the strategic locations which they can control state of Malacca, but India does not want to control it, but India wants to security and growth for all in the region. That's my point.
Thank you, Dr. Alok. In fact, some of the points that you have made is very interesting because, as you said in the end, India is actually not seen as a coercive power. It's not an aggressive power per se, where other countries in the region would feel threatened. It has been playing, let's say, a more of a pragmatic and a more constructive role in the region. Now, having said this, Professor Anak, what is your view on this? I mean, is Dr. Alok quite accurate in his assessment regarding how India is seen in ASEAN, amongst ASEAN members? You're on mute, sir.
Yeah, okay. I think this is a quite good point from Dr. Alok that uh, between ASEAN and India, basically we have a very good relations. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to mention about the Prime Minister Narendra Modi on ACT policy. So I think with this policy, India has paid attention very much on the importance of ASEAN, and I think this is the era for us to have a kind of collaboration. And let's say, but however, this is something that I'm also going to mention to you all. And you know that you have been participated in quadrilateral dialogue between India, Japan, US, and Australia. But even though this is a quite good, let's say, signals of your foreign policy on how to be engaged in the regions, I think again the need for more transparency to increase the level of trust among us, especially between Quad and ASEAN, is very crucial because if I'm not mistaken, please correct me if I'm wrong. One of the, let's say, target of the quadrilateral dialogue is trying to, let's say, to some extent, quote unquote, to contain the influence of China in the region. And you know that you have a freedom, let's say, navigations and so on and so forth in our region. But again, in that context, I think I need to mention a bit about the ASEAN outlook on Indo-Pacific, AOIP, and it was the initiative of Indonesia in order to create a kind of, let's say, even though this is not binding, let's say a rule of game in the regions in which, let's say, this initiative has been initiated by our foreign minister, the previous foreign minister, uh, Madam Retno Marsudi, in order to engage everyone inclusively, not exclusively, everyone in the regions. And I think this is quite important to also to mention about the on how to balance the interests of the all, let's say, parties in the region, so that we can maintain the stability, the harmonizations, and also the policy coordinations among them. And again, with this ASEAN outlook under the Pacific, as you may know, or you may quite aware of, one of the pillars of the ASEAN outlook on the Pacific is about maritime cooperation. And of course, when we talk about Indo-Pacific, Indian Ocean, and Pacific Oceans, we share the same two oceans. And I think we have also involved in Indian Ocean's Rim Association, in which Indian Ocean, if we take a look at the map, a geographical map or geopolitical map, Indian Ocean will play a very important role on not only for our trade but also for a global trade, as you may know from the experience of the let's say the latest war between U.S., Israel, and Iran. So the point that I'm going to convey is that this is the era. This is the time for us to strengthen the collaborations by having more confidence building measure, to increase the level of trust among us, so that everyone can join, everyone can play, everyone can engage in the regions with, let's say, regional rule-based order. And ASEAN Outlook into the Pacific, and in more specific way, when I previously mentioned about the problems in South China Sea, we have also talked about the code of conduct, and the target for the code of conduct to be finished is by the end of the year. So again, everyone can play in the region, yeah. But of course, we have to respect the regional-based order, which is ASEAN 2045, and before that, we have also to mention ASEAN Outlook on in the Pacific. So ASEAN Outlook on the Pacific can be can become, let's say, a rule-based order mechanism for all of us to play and to engage in a more constructive way, in a more positive way. So we do really appreciate your policy, especially from your Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Act East policy. And talking bilaterally, Indonesia and India have also a very strong relations, because as far as I'm concerned, we are going to we are now in the middle of negotiations on how to, let's say, to have cooperations on defense industry, especially from your missile BrahMos. Yeah, and I think this is a good sign for us for our collaborations. And again, bilaterally speaking, we have a very good relations. And just to inform you, everyone, by the end of this year, I think I co-editor with one of my colleagues from India, Dr. Monojit Das. Uh, uh, we are going to publish. Hopefully, it will be published soon by Springer Nature in Singapore, talking about the strategic voice of our region. So I think again, I do really appreciate in a very general one these invitations to make our relations much closer, and mutual understanding, mutual trust are something that we have to, let's say, to be able to rejuvenate, or to, let's say, to increase
Anak,
in the future.
your
So
I think your network is
yeah,
bad, or is it mine? I'm not sure.
I think
Hello.
I'm quite okay here. Uh, did you miss a lot?
I
Yes,
I suppose it's my
Anak,
the problem.
Mr. Anak, you are audible. Vibhav, your network is weak.
Sorry,
I
There,
suppose it's mine
okay.
only.
everyone can. Am I audible enough for you, Dr. Alok?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes, sir,
you
you
are
are
audible.
audible. You can
Yeah,
continue.
please proceed.
Okay, okay. So again, I've been talking a lot, but the point is, we do really appreciate your foreign policy strategy on Act East policy, and I think that will be a very good sign for us to have a, let's say, much stronger collaborations between Indonesia and India, and particularly on ASEAN. Something that I have mentioned earlier is about a quadrilateral dialogue between US, Japan, Australia, and India. And I think we need to increase our level of trust so that we can, let's say, avoid the possibility of a friction among us. So that will be probably my response to your question. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Professor Anak. Dr. Alok Yadav, I just wanted to know, I mean, sir was just talking about Quad also in
Yes.
between. Actually, Quad, as we know, there's also one misconception that happens across the world that Quad is some kind of an arrangement that is done to encircle the Chinese. Of course, India is also a country that faces some problems with China, both at the economic front and also at the border levels as well. But perhaps India is the only country amongst the Quad nations that has a land border, and rather a large land border with the Chinese.
Land
So the
dispute
way we
also.
Yes, yes, yes. So, given the nature of threat that we are facing, it is a little different from what other countries in the Quad are facing. Now, having said this, also, even Professor Anak has mentioned about conflicts across the world as well. He has mentioned about the US, Israel, and Iran conflict. And on the other side, you are also having the Russia-Ukraine conflict, right? Now,
Yes.
one thing that binds India and ASEAN over the last many decades has been the principle of non-alignment, right? That it has
Yes.
been even Indonesia was one of the founding members, with
Founding
President
members.
Sukarno being one of the leaders there and one of the big supporters of non-alignment movement. But having when this idea of neutrality comes in, and India also has shown this idea of neutrality or whatever, which we call it as strategic autonomy, where we will decide how we need to run our foreign policy discourse. So when you are, let's say, when India is engaging with Russia, or when India is engaging with Iran, or maybe or any stakeholder in the conflict, does it undermine our? I mean, it's like I'm being a devil's advocate here, but I'm just asking whether will this undermine our credibility as a neutral partner for ASEAN?
No, India always maintain its strategic autonomy. India trade with China, trade with Russia, trade with US also. But we always maintain our strategic autonomy. Our Prime Minister Narendra Modi always, and our Minister of External Affairs, yes, Jaishankar, always focus on strategic autonomy. We we fulfill our national interest first, then that is not matter whether it was US or Russia. And if we talk about the Quad, uh, I assume that this question will arise because India ASEAN is as a natural partners, because Indian Ocean and Pacific Oceans, Malacca, state of Malacca connect both. So India and ASEAN are the natural maritime partners. So, and the factor is China, rise of China. If rise of China is peaceful, then no matter India is also trading with China, we are also engaging with China. There is no war since 1962. Some little bit conflict like Galwan, we can avoid that, but India's view on view ASEAN centrality and its Quad as complementary rather than the contradictory. That is the clear. ASEAN remains the main focus of India's Act East policy and Indo-Pacific vision. India has consistently emphasized that regional regional institutions like ASEAN will always remain remain leading platform for India's Act East policy, while the Quad focus on the practical cooperation in the areas such as maritime security and technology transfer and disaster relief. And so ASEAN will be always main focus of India's ASEAN practice policy.
Okay. So, Professor Anak, you had mentioned, I think, few minutes back about ASEAN centrality, right? Actually, I just want you to, for the benefit of the audience, could just tell us what is ASEAN centrality, for one, and two, you see, when it comes to that also, in our region, which we have SARC, for example, SARC is not always united on most of the issues, especially when one of the members happens to be Pakistan, right? For us, India and Pakistan have had its own series of tensions and which led to wars and all. That kind of an issue may not be there with, let's say, ASEAN. Hence the ASEAN centrality. That's what we are talking about. But just last year, right, or sometime around this time, you had uh, actually a conflict, a border skirmish between Cambodia and Thailand, right?
Thailand.
The Thai military was obviously far more sophisticated militarily, and they had, I'm not sure what the exact dispute was, but going by some of the reports that came within India, it was over some ancient temple sites that were located on both the sides of the border, and it led to something very serious, like artillery shelling, airstrikes, drone strikes, etc. So you have these kind of issues too, and doesn't that put kind of a threat on ASEAN centrality as well? So over to you, Professor Anak.
Okay. Basically, yeah, that is part of the institutional limit that ASEAN has so far. Uh, ASEAN, in ASEAN, for example, always try to emphasize openness, inclusivity, and as I mentioned earlier about centrality. But however, some the principle remain just remain just on paper without let's say if I'm trying to criticize ASEAN without operational, let's say, mechanism. So the key weaknesses, I think, include when we talk about this ASEAN centrality, we don't have any standing dispute resolution mechanism for member or member versus external power, like that you have mentioned earlier about the border dispute between Thailand and Cambodia. So we don't have, let's say, no standing dispute resolution mechanism. So the second one, I think, on the problems of centrality, even though ASEAN always try to do this on by having ASEAN outlook on Indo-Pacific, as I have mentioned earlier, we also always try to rely on consultations rather than binding norms. So again, this is the problem of, let's say, I think most of regional organizations, especially on the global south, on developing work, on the context of consultations, because we are trying to a kind of negotiations among us. So the bigger the member of the organizations, I think more difficulties we are going to have. So that is about the reliance on consultations rather than binding norms that I have mentioned earlier. Even though, again, I mentioned earlier that we are going to put more on regional-based order. Yeah. Again, this is a very beautiful on paper, but in reality, it is quite, I think, becoming more and more difficult or tougher to be implemented. Then the next point that I'm going also to say is that about the inability to prevent external powers from weaponizing economic, let's say, issues. When you talk about, let's say, when we talk about China's Belt and Road Initiative, we have also to mention about the possibility of debt traps, and then U.S. tariffs or trade war, especially to any, I think, to most of the countries, including Indonesia, for example. So uh, This is quite important a question that I think need to be addressed, especially together within ASEAN. Whether centrality is only a name. So again, ASEAN future geopolitical landscape will always be shaped not only by the grand strategy but by how internally how the ASEAN member states can manage cumulative pressure, and the cumulative pressure is coming from day to day. I mean, getting more complex and connected. So the most plausible scenario, I think, is not the collapse of ASEAN, but again, we are talking about differentiated and divided ASEAN, where ASEAN remains a diplomatic forum and still remain a diplomatic forum, especially for the 11 countries, according to Timor-Leste as the newest member of ASEAN, and a very useful umbrella for some economic agreements. And then, especially, we are going to move forward on digital economic framework, but we still have problems on, let's say, border dispute among us. So uh, we have to be frank that we are divided, but at least we still have, let's say, a common visions on how to, let's say, to maintain this regional association. So for ASEAN to remain relevant, I think we need to, let's say, to review or even to accept what we call as qualified majority voting on selected issues. And then we have to be able to create a rapid response mechanism for crisis, and of course also deepen ties to deepen our relations, our ties with non-traditional partners like you, like India, like South Korea, and probably with some of the Gulf countries, to be able to reduce the great power competition between US and China. So without such, I think, internal reformation, ASEAN is going to, let's say, to become just a rhetorical shield, and I think the other countries will, go individually, and then probably will become so the internal problems will paralyze our effectiveness on how to, let's say, to maintain the term of, let's say, centrality. So it will be dependent much on us, and we still have another summit in Manila, if I'm not mistaken, in this October. So I think this is, let's say, a very strong alarm for ASEAN to not only to put the centrality on paper, but on how to implement it on our, let's say, common problems that ASEAN has today. So that will be my response. Uh, Thank you.
Right. So there is a question to both the panelists here. One thing that is very similar about India and ASEAN is how we are balancing two major powers in the world today, that is United States and China, on various issues, on various issues around the world or in parts of the world where both the countries have disagreements or something of that sort. But we have also come to a situation where, let us say, one power in particular has a president who does not believing in balancing, but he is perhaps, let's say, more keen on seeing that that countries bandwagon towards him, right? So you have a scenario like that. Then on the other hand, you have another country which may not be, or which does not have a history of, let's say, respecting the balancing act that might have happened. Given this dynamics that have happened over the last, I'm not going to say decades, but something that has been a recent phenomenon, let's say in the last 10 years or so, um, is balancing really the way forward going from now on, or will we be forced to pick a side eventually? Maybe when conflicts escalate over a period of time, will both India and ASEAN be forced to pick a side, despite institution mechanisms that might be in place? So we'll start with Dr. Alok, and then perhaps we can go with Professor Anak after that.
India always maintain balancing situation, and if there is a sometimes there are many theories that if there is a war between US and China, which side India will took, and at that time there may be India, there are Quad, there which is security dialogue, and but there is no progress in last 2 years after Trump take the president charge. So that will depend on what will be the best in India's national interest. And at that time, India always focus on theoretically who is right. India the theory of non-alignment movement was based on this theory that India always remains with the side which is always right, not and who will maintain and respect the sovereignty and interdep- independence of a nation. And at that time, you see at many times in Gulf War, India always take a stand and send all humanitarian forces. And if he is, if at the situation emerges as US and China war like situation, then there might be India would be, I think, neutral.
Okay. Professor Anak, your response to the question made.
Okay, you are asking about about the centrality and the strategic happening. Is that correct?
Actually, what I asked was that balancing has been something
Uh-huh.
that both India and ASEAN have done in the larger US-China rivalry.
Yeah.
So, given the fact that both the sides have time and again shown that balancing may not always be the best idea because
Mhm.
they are very keen on seeing to it that these countries do come under their I wouldn't say sphere of influence also, but I would say that even supporting them in their efforts is something that has been seen from time to time. I just gave the example of President Trump, although not explicitly, but
Mhm.
he has time and again told that whether it is alliance in alliance he would want burden sharing to be done by alliance partners,
Mhm.
but at the same time he would want other countries who might be neutral in any conflict
Mhm.
or might be engaging with multiple partners to not engage with the countries that the United States is perhaps having a problem with.
Mhm.
Trump has often pressurized India to, let's say, lower down its oil purchases from Russia. But I'm pretty sure that ASEAN too might have undergone similar issues too, where
Mhm.
either one or both the powers might have uh, forced them to try and take a stance. It has not happened yet because I do believe that there is ASEAN centrality. It has its
Yeah.
own unique voice. But given how the dynamics are in the coming years, do you
Okay.
think balancing may not be the way forward or it will continue to be despite institutional mechanism?
Okay. So basically, allow me to mention, or let's say to convey to you all that again, for decades, ASEAN has marketed itself as a neutral convener, or let's say in other term, or to put it another way, we can use the term as honest, an honest broker. Yeah. So with this term, I think this is a kind of the way of ASEAN in trying to balancing, especially to balance the interests of everyone in the region. And the term the the honest broker, I think will over a dialogue without a kind of domination, without domination. So it means about the balance. So the position, so its position between the U.S. and China is always tried to or visually described as one of hedging, maintaining ties with both giants to maximize and also to maximize benefit and minimize risk. So minimize risk. So again, managing ties with both giants between US and China to maximize benefits and minimize risk. So that is the kind of, let's say, in my term, in my opinion, this is about the balancing. So, however, a kind of, a critical view suggests that this position is increasingly unattainable. The concept of ASEAN centrality, strategic autonomy, balancings are not robust assured. But this is a kind of fragile narrative that masks a growing, let's say, structural dependency and also internal fragmentation. So in that context, I think uh, ASEAN centrality or trying to balance is less about power and more about procedural, let's say, convenience for the larger state. So again, this kind of problem. Uh, ASEAN was not, let's say, at the table for the US-China trade war negotiations and the AUKUS security pact, let's say, between Australia, UK, and US, and also with the Quad security dialogue. So these are the real geopolitical architectures shaping ASEAN future. And if ASEAN internally cannot manage this, I think ASEAN will become just a spectator. So in that context, I think there are a lot of problems that ASEAN need to act, because this is only the not the problems of the, let's say, balancing, but on how to manage the relation, especially among the great powers and also the other extra regional powers like Europe, like India. So in the very positive and constructive or favorable environment, so then we can grow up together. So, but again, uh, there are problems of here because this is about the diplomatic, let's say, effort of non-alignment. Uh, Singapore hosts U.S. naval bases and also Philippines. The as Philippines allow U.S. Forces under enhanced defense cooperation agreement, but also they ask a kind of Chinese investment. So the balancing of strategic autonomy is a necessary, let's say, term for domestic audiences, but I do not think this is quite exists in actual crisis scenario. So I think this is the problems of ASEAN. So again, what I'm going to say is that we do have a lot of problems internally, and also some external pressure from the a broader, let's say, economic, political, and security environment in the context of Indo-Pacific. So that will be probably my response to your questions. Thank you.
Okay. So, Dr. Alok, I just wanted to ask this one question that just popped in my mind. See, India and much of Southeast Asia have shared a long civilizational ties, spanning
Yes, interlinkage.
yes, more than 1,000 years plus. So even we are located here, our college is located in that place or that region, which had one of the greatest empires that India created, the Chola Empire, which had links with the Southeast Asian countries, and one of the let's say the evidences or one of the standing testimonies of that is you can see temples like Angkor Wat and other
Yes,
places,
yes.
right? But see, there are civilizational ties. There is a growing economic ties, as you mentioned about one highway that is being built between the northeast and
India.
going all the way till Thailand and other places. So, but security is something that is still somewhere we really need to work on, because India also has problems with insurgency in the northeast. It has reduced over a period of time. Maybe one or two states there might have a cyclical violence, as we have seen in a place like Manipur. But uh, the other issue has also been, let's say, proliferation of drugs being trafficked into India and then from there back into the ASEAN countries, especially Thailand and Myanmar and those places. So, is there a possibility that in the future that India and ASEAN might explore a security partnership? Is it a realistic thing to think about?
Yes, India is always strategic partnership with many countries like Vietnam and itself Indonesia. There is comprehensive strategic partnership with Indonesia, and there might be a combined. There are many combined military exercises in like Pragati, India, Japan, and Indonesia, Milan exercise, and India Garud exercise, and there are many exercises with Singapore, Symbis, and it's so India always working. Indian Navy is working with ASEAN navies, countries navy in many sectors like. Drugs control to drugs and piracy and like there are many challenges in disaster relief. Today I think there is a tsunami alarm in Philippines. 8.2 Richter earthquake was detected. So in 2004, there Indonesian tsunami and tsunami in Indian Ocean, Indonesia and India were impact by this. They work together to disaster relief and search and rescue operations. Maybe in next there is golden triangle in for drugs that is called golden triangle for drugs trade in Thailand, Myanmar, and Thailand, Indonesia. No, sorry, Indonesia, not.
Laos.
But India work in cyber security also. There are many cyber security agreements. India give not agreement. There is on 9th March 2026. There is a news that writers reported that BrahMos will be uh, purchased by Indonesian army also, and we are already completed the deal with Vietnam. There are many security arrangements and in ASEAN defense minister meeting dialogues ADDM also going on. There are many security arrangements in India and ASEAN.
Okay. So, Professor Anak, I actually have a very curious question. I mean, we are at the final stages of the discussion. So, actually, Indonesia has been in the news with respect to India-Indonesia defense partnership. You have mentioned about the sale of BrahMos and all those things. Now, see, a country like India, I don't mean anything in a pejorative sense. I just to make it just to make myself a bit clear that India definitely builds on those technologies which will try and match up against its adversaries, right? So India has already a history of fighting conflicts with Pakistan and China. So we do have a true two-front war kind of a situation, maybe today or in the future as well. Which is why we need to have certain weapons of strategic value. So BrahMos is such an example, which is one of the fastest cruise missiles in the world, with which was designed with Russian collaboration. So my question is, it is great for India to sell weapons to Indonesia, but the curiosity for me is why would a country like Indonesia want a cruise missile from India like this? I'm see you can have an air force, a really good fighter jet and all, but a cruise missile has a certain range, and you can fire it beyond the point. So my question is, what is this threat matrix or the threat perception that Indonesia has that it requires such kind of weaponry? Thank you.
Yeah, I think this is a very interesting question. Yeah. Well, again, as Dr. Alok has mentioned earlier, and you, and I think most of you knows that we have a very long and strategic relations between Indonesia and India. I think the point is not only on how Indonesia can buy or can own the let's say the BrahMos, but the next important point for me, in my opinion, is about the transfer of technology. So I think this is a kind of more than necessary for Indonesia to have, let's say, to be able to have more advanced technology on how to protect its own country. As a, let's say, as a very, I mean, we have to be frank that Indonesia is the biggest country in Southeast Asia. And if you have to look at the geographical map, our position is very strategic. Yeah. So this is not only on how Indonesia can buy your BrahMos, but the most important point, as I mentioned earlier, on how we can have a kind of defense industry cooperation. And I think this is quite important. This is not we are not aiming this to, let's say, to create a kind of the new arms races in the region, but the problem is on how to protect our country and try to modernize our weaponry system. And you know that I think if you follow the news on Indonesia defense acquisition, we are now modernizing our navy and our air force, especially by buying a lot of Rafale, and then on Akan with Turkey and also with Russia. And also on navy. So the point is not so much on let's say to provide us with a more advanced technology to create a kind of a perception to the others, but on how to prepare Indonesia to be able to increase its defense technology and defense industry. So, of course, we do have a good relations, but if we take a look at the Indo-Pacific, for example, if we are going to look at Indo-Pacific, we have a very overlapping mechanisms on cooperation. We are together on, let's say, East Asia Summit, and we have a very good relations on ASEAN-India partnership. But of course, we are talking also about ASEAN Regional Forum. But the point is, with this kind of, let's say, overlapping mechanism, we have also to remind that our position is very determined or marked by, let's say, as I mentioned earlier, with our competition, regional conflicts of China Sea, Korean Peninsula, Taiwan Strait, and also the shifting of economic groups. And something that I would like to show you, to inform you, if you take a look at, for example, to the latest survey prepared by Institute of Southeast Asian Studies last year by National University of Singapore on the State of Southeast Asia 2025 survey. This is quite interesting because 50% of the respondents show that in 51.6% even so that we are very concerned on the aggressive behavior in the South China Sea. So this is the potential conflict. But again, Indonesia and ASEAN has come up with a lot of ideas, especially Indonesia, because I was there in some of the initiative on, for example, on the workshop on managing conflict in South China Sea. So probably the conflict is still there or will always be there. But the point is on how to manage the conflict so it will not break into a war. So this is, I think, the problems of ASEAN today, because a lot of additional and important issues coming up to us. But the point is, for me, again, whether you agree or disagree with me, the point is on how we can level up the mutual trust among us, not only within ASEAN, but also with the other partners like you, South Korea, Japan, and so on and so forth. So I think this is the real, let's say, a challenge for us on how to become, let's say, to tackle all the problems together. Because one of the concern as well, whether we like it or not, in our global, let's say, situation, there is a kind of tendency to the rise of minilateral and supraregional alignments. Yeah, you have mentioned about a quote. I have mentioned about quote. I have mentioned also about the U.S. Bilaterally speaking, U.S. Philippine enhanced agreement, and then the other, let's say, AUKUS and so on and so forth. So again, if we take a look at the regional architecture in the Pacific, there are a lot of overlapping mechanism here. So of course, we can try to promote all these mechanism as especially on ASEAN Regional Forum, the East Asia Summit, or Dr. Alok also mentions about the ASEAN Defense Minister meeting plus with the 8, let's say, dialogue partners, uh, including you, in order to create what we have, let's say, a very favorable, again, a very constructive situations in the region. So having, let's say, defense technology, a very advanced technology, is not only about the uh, owning the technology, but for me, it is quite more important, just to wrap up, to have the capability to increase to capacity to increase our capacity building on defense technology and our, let's say, national or local defense industry. So that would be my response to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Professor Anak. One final question to you is that uh, I just wanted to know which Southeast Asian nation is best suited to lead the
Sorry?
charge. Which Southeast Asian nation
Uh-huh.
is best suited to lead the ASEAN talk in the years to come? I mean, our topic is ASEAN 2045. We
Uh-huh.
still have 19 years to reach that spot. But is there any? I mean, according to your opinion, is there any Southeast Asian nation that is best suited to lead the bloc to meet the challenges, or or do you think there is some kind of a nuance here also?
Frankly, this is a very, I think this is the most toughest question that I have. Well, again, it depends on ASEAN itself, because I think we are going to talk uh, more on, let's say, as I mentioned earlier, the issue of centrality, and I think no one will become, let's say, the leader of ASEAN itself, because we are put anything so far on consensus. But the important point is, can we, let's say, ASEAN, for example, maintain the key aspect that I've mentioned before, consensus building and principle of non-interference, and so on and so forth. But again, if we take a look at 2045 visions of our shared future, what we are going to look at, what we are going to have in the future is that we are going to try to put forward the three community that we have so far in ASEAN, and we are going to move forward. Even though I know this is not a very easy task. For example, to increase the level of our political and security community, and again, if we take a look at theoretical aspect, if we are going to have a security community, we have to make sure that there is no border disputes among the members. So that will be our next challenge on what kind of political security that we are going to have. The second one is about economic security. You know exactly that the economic gap among the members is quite far. We talk about Singapore, which is very rich, but to some extent, we have also to take into account the, let's say, the economic level of, let's say, Laos, or even the new member of ASEAN, which is Timor Leste. So on ASEAN 2045, we are going to have political security community in a more practical way, economic community, and again, this is another problem that we are going also to promote on social community. As you know quite well, again, we are very diverse in terms of, let's say, community, religious, ethnicity, and so on and so forth. But again, this kind of community, political security, economic community, and social community, should engage. And I think this is quite important. And this is another challenge for ASEAN. Should engage the people as much as we can. Because one of the criticism to ASEAN is that this is just an elite club, you know. And if you're going to talk about this kind of community, well, I have a very, I'm now in a position of healthy skepticism on this, yeah, on how to manage the very diverse social and cultural issues in Southeast Asia. It's not quite easy. You know exactly that one of the very simple example is that the border dispute between Thailand and Cambodia. Culturally speaking, religiously speaking, they have a lot in common. But again, because of the politics, then voila. So during the ASEAN summit in 2025, even in Kuala Lumpur, when the summit just start and then the conflict or the war between the two have just also started. So this is a kind of paradox, isn't it? So again, it will be much depend on the elite, but again, this will also be depend on to what extent we can engage people to people connection, people to people relations. And for me, this is much harder to be tackled with if we are going to look at, let's say, ASEAN in 2045. Thank you very much for for very provocative questions to me.
Okay, I hope I'm audible because
Yes.
there's this notification that I have lost network connection, but apparently I can see you and hear you. So anyway, thank you, Professor Anak, for being kind enough to answer my questions. But I also have the final question for Dr. Alok as well.
Okay.
See, Professor Anak has been just talking about I mean, he just mentioned an example of Cambodia and Thailand having had a conflict, and then he also said that some critics also call ASEAN as some kind of an elite club, a club where, let's say, on one hand you have an extremely rich and countries or extremely influential countries like Singapore, but then you have on the other end of the spectrum, you have countries that are struggling with internal conflicts and other issues, maybe economic as well. Uh, which makes, let's say, bringing consensus or even leading from the front, it makes it very challenging. So, given the circumstances, my question to you is, if that is a scenario, will India be ready to take the challenge as a leader in the future?
No, as we already respect sovereignty and integrity of every nation. So I think India does not want to be a leader of ASEAN because ASEAN is itself a mutual institution, and every nation of ASEAN is already leaders. And earlier on 13th May, there is a dialogue you heard, Sangrila dialogue. I can quote a statement from their Timor Leste president, which is also a member of ASEAN. He said that in the world of in a world where bridges are burned faster than they are built, ASEAN offers a model on how patient and practical diplomacy can transform conflict into cooperation. So
Mhm.
ASEAN is a model of cooperation, and ASEAN proved it. As SARC, there was SARC, and we failed in that because of Pakistan. We can't we Pakistan does not support in meetings, and they boycotted SARC, and SARC nearly failed this time. But ASEAN is a model of institution, and any so we can always say ASEAN is a best institution in the world in current time. As I can also say with responsibility that UN Security Council is also irrelevant at that time to maintain world peace and security. That was this institution duty, but they can't handle. But ASEAN performed well. There are some disputes and conflict, but as there are not a war within the ASEAN nations. Thank you. This is my final remark.
Thank you, Dr. Alok. You were actually at your diplomatic best also. And the kind of answers that you gave were very, very good from both the panelists. And with this, I would like to open the session for Q&A right now. I have seen Mr. Bryant, Juan, Darren having raised his hand from, I think, since the last 45 minutes. And if if sir has some questions to ask, you are free to ask. You may use the chats or you may use the mic as well. But while doing so, please also mention your introduce yourself along with your affiliation. Mr. Bryant, thank you.
Okay. Hello, good evening in Indonesian time. Let me introduce myself. My name is Banyu. I was the independent. I was the independent research in the public policy in Southeast Asia, including the security maritimes. I have questions for the all speaker, including the Professor Anak Agung Bayu, which is my relative in Indonesia Defense University in Jakarta. My question is, in the face of the in the face of the intensifying China-India rivalry in the Indo-Pacific, how can ASEAN generally maintain in the ASEAN centrality without becoming trapped in economic dependence or a geopolitical pressure that ultimate undermine its own principle of the neutrality on the path toward ASEAN 2045 vision? That's it.
Professor, your response, please.
Okay, thank you. So, Brian, if we take a look, I think it is quite important for us to read the ASEAN 2045 document. Yeah, and I think assuming that you have read this document, if we take a look at, let's say, on that document, ASEAN try to envisioning a developed ASEAN as the epicenter of growth in the Pacific. This is very, very beautiful. Yeah. But I think if we are going to be very critical, I think we have to ask to ASEAN itself what what did they mean by epicenter of growth, especially in the current economic situations when a lot of countries, including Indonesia, is now very struggling on how to cope with the economic situations. But the point is, I think this is, I would like to underline the Dr. Alok words that ASEAN should become the, let's say, region, if, please correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Alok, from the regions of conflict to become the region of cooperation. And if we take a look in a very wider, let's say, horizon, we do still have a room to maneuver, to increase our, let's say, political security, community, economic community, and also, let's say, about social political, social community. But again, in order to be able to do that, we have also to mention that this ASEAN 2045, the theme is again, this is something that I think we have to be very critical enough, because ASEAN Community Vision 2045, it should be kind of resilient, innovative, dynamic, and people-centered ASEAN. So by looking at this document, I think it is quite important for us to look at the current situation. Internally speaking, for me, yeah, ASEAN must, not even need, but must increase its collective capacity in order to reduce the gap among the members. You cannot, let's say, compare between Singapore to Timor-Leste, yeah, because I was part also I was also part of the team for our Ministry of Foreign Affairs to increase the capacity of the diplomats of Timor-Leste a couple years ago. So we need to increase our collective capacity, not individual capacity. Yeah, if we are going to be able to move forward in a lot of aspects or dimensions, including today, because we are living in the era of AI, including the, let's say, the digitalization of cooperation. We have to be able to strengthen crisis management mechanism, because we do not want to have, let's say, a kind of problem like Thailand and Cambodia had so far, and it will put ASEAN in jeopardy. Even it will paralyze our regional cooperation. So we don't have, we do not have that, the crisis management mechanism. Yeah, and even if you take a look, and this is, I think, something quite important if we can create the next panel discussion. A couple days ago, I mean, during the ASEAN summit in Cebu, Philippines, we agreed to establish what we call as ASEAN Maritime Center. So ASEAN Maritime Center aims at coordinating a lot of initiative and maritime security in the region. And one of them, whether we like it or not, whether we agree or not, we are trying to, let's say, to talk more in a very serious way on the problem in South China Sea. Yeah. So with the new framework of ASEAN Maritime Center, yeah, and of course we have to take a look at the operationalizations of ASEAN Maritime Center later on. But again, this is a new initiative. However, yeah, talking also about the natural disaster. I think Dr. Alok has mentioned about this one because most of ASEAN countries are located in Ring of Fire, including Indonesia, and without, let's say, rejuvenate itself, reform to do a lot of internal reform, I'm very concerned that ASEAN will only become a talk show. Yeah, just like NATO, no action, but talks only. So I'm going to stop my response to Brian question here. NATO, no action, but talks only. So this is just like a talk show. Thank you. Hope that it has responded.
So we have Mr. Shubham Gupta with a question. So perhaps please switch on the mic and then introduce yourself along with your affiliation, and then you may proceed with the question.
Thank you, sir. My name is Shivam Gupta. I'm a research scholar in the Department of Defense and Strategic Studies, DDU Gorakhpur University, Gorakhpur. My question is, sir, as I know that there are almost 58 to 59 kinetic conflicts going on throughout the world, but this Russia-Ukraine war and this Israel and the Palestine war has affected the world economy and the world peace a lot. And you also know that, sir, United States has put a lot of sanctions on different countries as well as on India also. We are not able to buy the oil from the Iran. We are not able to buy the oil from that Russia. So, what role ASEAN countries can play to bring back the global economy on the track and maintain again bringing the peace throughout the world?
The question for me or for Dr. Alok?
Yes, Anak, sir.
Okay, for me. Okay,
Sir.
thank you. Again, I'm very honored to again to be invited here, and had a lot of discussions with you, my colleagues from India. Okay, again, if you give us the example of that kind of war, let's say a Ukraine war and U.S. Israel Iran war.
Israel, Palestine, and Iran war. So basically.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, sorry, okay. Uh, I think my very direct response is ASEAN said was split. Yeah. We have been divided into several, let's say, to several camps. For example, Singapore position totally different with, let's say, Malaysia position, and let's say Indonesian position is, for me, is in a very in gray area. So I please correct me if I'm wrong again. Whether ASEAN has issued, let's say, a kind of a child statement on these situations. Our hedging strategy has been paralyzed and not very autonomy in that context. So the point that I'm going also to convey, I'm I think I'm quite sure that ASEAN has a special mechanisms on energy security. Yeah, And I think if we are going to look at that issue, I think this is something. This is the time for ASEAN to talk about, let's say, a very specific mechanisms on ASEAN energy security. Yeah, and as far as I'm concerned, again, as far as I'm concerned, we do have a lot of different perceptions on this because, for example, Singapore has a totally different interests compared to Indonesia and also to Philippines, compared to Thailand and the other. So again, the balancing the interest. I do remember the question from the moderator. Balancing interest is very also important to be cope with within ASEAN itself. And again, this is not an easy task. But as well as concerned, there were some meetings among the Minister of Energy of ASEAN on how to pull the problem. But what I'm going to also to mention also about is whether ASEAN can further accelerate the movement of into the green energy. Yeah. So in one hand, uh, I don't think that we can, for example, avoid our need on fossil energy. But on the other hand, I think this is the time for us, in my opinion, to move forward onto, let's say, a more green energy uh, transition. So that will be my response to you, Subham Gupta. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
So we have Mr. Kumar Saurabh with a question as well. Mr. Kumar Saurabh, please introduce yourself along with the affiliation and proceed with the question.
Good afternoon, sir. I am Kumar Saurabh. I am from Ranchi. I am a PhD research scholar from Ranchi University. I am also a ICSSR doctoral fellow. I have a one question for both to Alok sir and Professor Anak. Professor, you mentioned that Professor Alok has mentioned that the United States has played a relatively limited role in shaping the Indo-Pacific regional order in recent years. However, recent crises in West Asia have highlighted the strategic importance of maritime choke points,
Mhm.
such as the Strait of Hormuz, while in the Indo-Pacific, the Strait of Malacca remains equally critical for global trade and energy flows. We are also witnessing increasing external interest in Malacca Strait,
Mm.
including security cooperation and patrol arrangements with Indonesia.
Mhm.
We can see that the US also dealt with Indonesia in recent 2 or 3 months, previously 2 or 3 months ago. While suggests that the major powers recognize that influence over key sea lanes will be crucial in the future. At the same time, concerns over a potential Taiwan contingency,
Mm.
Japan's increasing defense spending, its shift towards long-range strike capabilities, and growing military cooperation between Japan and the Philippines indicates a rapidly evolving security environment. In the light of these developments, how far can ASEAN continue to manage regional stability and maintain its centrality? Can ASEAN-led mechanisms effectively address these emerging security challenges? Or are we witnessing a gradual shift towards security arrangements driven by major and the middle power outside the ASEAN framework? This is a long question which I have said to you.
Me first or Dr. Alok first? So,
Hello.
okay.
I am audible.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
ASEAN centrality, as you ask, is the key for ASEAN for this regional stability. The concept of ASEAN centrality remains critical in upcoming years because ASEAN has successfully created institutions such as for security region, ASEAN Regional Forum, which is actually continue, and East Asia Summit. This is for mostly for trade and commerce. ASEAN Defense Ministers Meeting Plus organization, and in some institution, there is US also members and Japan is also members. So if these platforms ensure the regional dialogue is not dominated by any single power, there is the main core for ASEAN centrality is that no single power will dominate the ASEAN region. Without ASEAN centrality, regional conflict may be increased and strategic competition could be intensified. And smaller states may lose their diplomatic space. That is my answer.
Okay, is it my turn now?
Yes, Professor Anak, please.
Sorry. Kumar, I think you have another important and a tough question. Yeah, but I'm trying to respond your very long and important question. Well, in my opinion, again, centrality is very beautiful on paper, and it will require enforcement. For me, yeah. Sorry if I have to be very critical on ASEAN. ASEAN has no standing navy, no sanction mechanism, no ability to punish a member or external power that violates the principle of ASEAN. We have uh, uh, Treaty of Amity and Enmity, yeah. And so, for example, when China Coast Guard, let's say, to some extent, have a kind of incidents with Vietnamese and Philippines vessel, centrality only produce only diplomatic notes, not consequences. So I think if we are going to be to be much more stronger, I think ASEAN need to review this kind of, let's say, uh, policy or principles or its action. So in that context, ASEAN centrality is very tolerated, but for me, not very respected. Yeah. So again, this is the problem of ASEAN. So uh, I think no ASEAN state can defend its South China Sea. The Philippines, for example, Malaysia, and then Vietnam, Brunei Darussalam. So Indonesia is not the claimant of South China Sea. Yeah, and those countries, yeah, mm, cannot defend its South China Sea claims without. I'm so sorry to be frank here, without the U.S. Navy presence, because U.S. has provided them with training, surveillance, the credible threat of freedom of navigation operation, FNOP, and China provide none of this. So the autonomy in security means, and this is something that I'm very concerned, yeah, or very I'm very afraid of, that autonomy in security means accepting U.S. security guarantees while pretending that they are not binding. And this is also something that I was very worried about on Indonesia's foreign policy. Yeah, especially when now the government tried to move forward on the security and defense cooperation with the U.S. And Pete Hegseth has asked one of our airport to become, let's say, the facility of maintenance, repair, and overhaul of the Hercules transport. Yeah, Hercules C-130. So I think this is quite important for not only for Indonesia, Kumar, but also for the whole ASEAN, on how they can manage. Let's say again, the issue of balancing interest is very good, but very difficult to be maintained in order to have, let's say, an equidistant relations between U.S. and the great powers. So that will be my response to your very good questions, Kumar. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So we will take a final question. In fact, this question was already raised during our discussions, but I suppose this individual might have missed the answer at that moment. So I'll just repeat the question, whatever is mentioned. Hello, sir. I am Vinny. This is Miss Vinny Verma, a research scholar in the Department of Defense and Strategic Studies, Hindu College, Moradabad. My question is for Professor Dr. Anak, Agung, Banyu, Perwita. How ASEAN can maintain its strategic autonomy or central role without being forced to take a side between the US and China as we look towards 2045? I'm sure that you already answered this question, but for the benefit of our curious questioner, sir, I would request you to answer it once again.
Okay, again, the issue of strategic autonomy is very crucial for ASEAN. And well, ASEAN can claim that it can have an independent, let's say, independent policy to give powers, free from, let's say, compulsion or obligation to choose sides between Washington and Beijing, similar to the non-aligned movement during the Cold War. But again, the critical reality that we have, or the current situation that we have, is strategic autonomy is very luxury. Yeah. And again, if I have to be very critical, it is mostly rhetorical. So again, it will depend on the ASEAN itself. Strategic autonomy is very necessary issue for us. But again, I'm afraid that it doesn't really exist in actual crisis, let's say, scenarios. My very, let's say, latest example on the that it doesn't really exist in actual crisis scenarios during the border dispute, during the conflict between Thailand and Cambodia. Even though I know that Malaysia, as the chair, the last year chair of ASEAN, has put a lot of efforts on how to mediate the issue. But I don't think this is the achievement of ASEAN, but this is because this is a bilateral achievement between Thailand and Cambodia, because whether we like it or not, because even though they have, let's say, a border dispute, they need each other between Thailand and Cambodia. So in that context, I think we have to be very aware of that. This is one of the most, not the most, sorry, I put the wrong word on this, one of the important, let's say, aspect that we should have in the future. The crisis management center, let's say the dispute center among the member of ASEAN. So again, my very short response to this will be much depend on how the leaders of ASEAN can come up and agree with certain and particular agreement on in the future. So that will be my response to that. Very also another important question. Thank you.
Thank you to the panelists and also those who asked very pertinent questions on this particular topic. Before we actually wind up, I think Miss Yogesh Bajwan also had one question, and I saw a hand being raised when the discussion was going on. Am I right with the assertion here? Hello. Okay, it's all
हेलो
right.
गुड इवनिंग सर
Okay, yes, please go ahead.
सर मेरा क्वेश्चन है, जैसे अमेरिका और चीन के बीच में जो खिंचाव है वो बढ़ रहा है, और जो 2045 तक जो एशियन है उसको हम कैसे सेंट्रलाइज बनाए रखेंगे? मतलब क्या हमें किसी एक को चुनना होगा?
Okay, so just to translate what Madam just asked, she said that there has been a situation where the United States and China have been pulling each other apart. Is there a scope for trying to sort things out and to ensure that there is peace and stability in the long run? So I mean, this is a rather open-ended question, Professor Anak and Dr. Alok.
Mm-hmm.
Is Dr. Alok here?
Okay.
Yes, there is some network issue from my side.
Yes. So I think we are all having a similar issue here. But so, ma'am just asked, that there was that United States and China have had differences being built up over a period of time, and will we see a situation in the future where this will not grow wider? I hope I got the translation right to a large extent. Uh, yeah. So, Dr. Alok, you can start with this.
Sorry, I missed the question.
Oh, okay, I repeat. So, Madam had asked a question that the United States and China have been moving apart, from a
Yes.
very long time. There is a deep fissure that is growing between the two countries. A very competitive, or not, rather than competitive spirit, you can say a more of a confrontational stance that both the countries have kept. Is there a scope for, let's say, better stability in the future, where countries can cooperate without having to pick sides? So yeah.
Yes, there may be political change in US also. If Trump goes out of the power, then there will be many changes we can see already. But if Trump can continue, at that situation, India always maintain, and ASEAN can also maintain a balancing situation. As we earlier talk about in very detail, you already Professor Anak also said that US is in the losing state because new emerging technology they can't handle the smaller states like Iran. They failed in Afghanistan, they failed in Iran, they failed in Iraq near about, and they beaten in Vietnam in after a long time ago. So if there are fighter like situation in hand to hand, in direct fight, if there is, they always lose. If they only rely there on air power, it comes on their army, they can't handle any enemy. So US is just trying to save their power by last time deterrence theory. And China is growing very fast. Either way, it's military or technology. Chinese technology, in especially in solar power, EV, in new emerging technology and resources. China is the new leader, and we have to accept it. And after that, we can handle the situation.
Professor Anak, I know the question was in Hindi, but I just translated it for you,
Okay.
so perhaps you can answer.
Okay. Thank you for translating the questions to English. Okay. Of course, I think this is something that I've mentioned before. That in the context of ASEAN, I think we need to balance between the US and China. So I would like to underline what Dr. Alok has mentioned. In that context, that we have to be able to preserve non-alignment while securing benefits from both economic and then try to balance with the political one. And I do remember this term from Hidetaka Yoshimatsu, a Japanese scholar, when he mentions about impartial enmeshment. So this is about the strategic hedging strategy that we ASEAN should have, impartial enmeshment, in order to balance between the US and China. The second one, I think this is also quite important to note that ASEAN centrality to put that issue again on also in other minilateral and multilateral mechanism like BRICS. Of course, you know that some of the ASEAN countries also has been engaged on BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. So again, ASEAN should try to also to use the regional and global platform, especially BRICS on the economy, to amplify their economic voices. So I think this is another again trying to balance between the other minilateral and multilateral economic mechanisms like BRICS. and we are there together. I think in order also to make the balance between Washington and Beijing, we have also to put focus more on maritime cooperation, because you know quite well that the global trade, um, the military movement should go to to maritime and sea waterways. So maritime cooperation focus will be the other options that we can have. Then, of course, mention about when we talk about economic development, we should be able to protect our natural resources and together again with maritime security cooperation. So that will be my response to the questions. Balancing impartial enlistment, use the other multilateral or minilateral mechanism like BRICS, and then of course the trying to put forward more on maritime cooperations. Thank you.
Thank you to the panelists, and thank you, ma'am, for the question. Now, since we are winding up with this panel discussion as well as the Q&A session, I would request our HOD, Mr. Gaurav Pandey, to share a small note of appreciation for the panelists.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, first of all, greetings from India to Dr. Anak and Dr. Alok. I'm really very glad that, sir, you have accepted our request and you have joined us and share your what happened? Okay. And you have shared your very insightful thoughts, and the discussion was very intense at certain point. Even so many things unofficially we have discussed here. So it was a very great talk what we have today regarding ASEAN 2045. And what was our actually the main motive, how the things going to navigate in future when we talk about the geopolitics. So it was a great what you say the exposure to the student as well, the research scholars, the undergraduate and postgraduate students, those who are listening here. Thank you so much, Dr. Anak, once again. Thank you, Dr. Alok, for accepting our request, sir, and taking these things to the next step and joining us here and sharing your very valuable thoughts. Definitely means people definitely give the mind-boggling thoughts to them to go and work again on the ASEAN, because so many I have seen so many researchers, those who are working on geopolitics, international relations, as well as the military or war studies. Sometimes the economic institution, the institution like ASEAN, they don't understand that much of the relevance of the this kind of institution. But today's thought definitely it make an impression on everyone, those who are here, and it will go beyond that. What the value an institution like ASEAN is having in the world. So your thoughts was really very thought provoking. Thanks joining us and accepting our request. Thank you so much, Dr. Alok. And before I wind him up, there was a one question was I want to ask the Dr. Anak. Even I was one of the participants there. Actually, my question was nothing that because so many have asked already, China and US participation in this Indo-Pacific region. My main argument was on how Indonesia, because Indonesia is one of the, because right now we are moving toward the energy and the energy security. China, Indonesia is one of the greatest reservoir of nickel. So how the nickel diplomacy or the dilemma nowadays we can say the nickel dilemma, because the EVs and whatever the emerging technologies are coming, they need the nickel. So US is imposing one side IRA on Indonesia. and Indonesia is somewhere, I will not mention certain things, but Indonesia is somewhere depend on Chinese one side. So what is your opinion, because you're one of the expert from the Indonesia, what is your opinion that how Indonesia will navigate with these two big giants, when both of them, and when the crucial point or the pivot of the energy, or the future energy in form of a nickel is lying in Indonesia? How you see uh, Indonesia will navigate with this thing and come out of this dilemma, because they don't want to go in a trap with the China, or they don't want to go in a trap with the US sanctions and other thing. So just within two lines or within few words, sir, I need your insightful thought on this topic.
Professor Anak, your response.
Oh, it's me? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah. I think this is quite important. This is another important. I just read our national newspaper, I think 2 days ago, that the government is now trying to ban the export of raw materials of nickel, because we are trying to get more, let's say, a beneficial income, and this is what we call as a downstream streaming of the nickel. And you know quite well that Indonesia, one of the biggest, one of the main exporter of nickel, and we do have a lot of cooperations with Chinese companies. And I have also to be very frank that we have also a lot of problems with them. So I think this is the time for the government under President Prabowo to be much tougher on the nickel trade, because I think I have also to mention that the EV, electrical vehicle in Indonesia, is growing very, very fast. And this is the time for us on how to manage our natural resources to be more, let's say, beneficial, not for the other countries, but for our own self. Yeah. So I think this is one of the problems that the President Prabowo has to cope with. Even though I know that I heard that some companies are reluctant to work with the government on this issue. But I think this is the kind of a test, a kind of let's say uh, what should I say, a kind of, let's say, a test not only for the President Prabowo, but also for Indonesia to slowly but sure to reduce our export on raw materials, so that the people of Indonesia can get more benefits. And I know that this is not quite an easy task, but we have to do that, unless I think will be much depend on China, and China will get more benefit than us as the producer of the nickel in the world. Thank you, Gaurav, for that questions. And I think this is one of our very important concern in our national development so far.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Thank you for your answer. Thank you. I will request Vibhav sir to continue to the vote of thanks.
Okay. Thank you, sir, for the token of appreciation that you just gave. And before actually going to the vote of thanks, I request everyone to just switch on the cameras so that we can have a photograph session. This is done so that because we impulsively leave the call the moment the vote of thanks is done. So we might as well have a photo session right now and then go ahead with it.
And one more thing, and
Yeah.
actually, I want to thanks Dr. Saurabh. Again, I'm seeing him and in the thoughts, and very actively, sir is participating. So thank you so much, sir, coming again and joining us.
I thank you very much, and I'm very honored to be invited here, and hope that someday I can visit your city, Chennai, and also probably your university. I've been to India 2 times, to Delhi and Mumbai. So hopefully next time I have an opportunity to visit your university, Chennai. Thank you very much. I'm very honored. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gaurav sir. Thank you.
Just we'll wait for the proposition, and then once done, then we can.
Yeah, can we switch on the cameras, please? Mr. Shubham Gupta, Vikya Tyagi, Rajalakshmi, Akshara, JMES, and the other participants, please switch on the cameras so that we can quickly go ahead with the photograph session and then wind up with the vote of thanks as well. Mr. Shubham Gupta. Okay. Ms. Rajalakshmi. Okay, so fine, we will go ahead with the photo session now in 3, 2, 1. Go. Okay, thank you so much for the photography session that we have had, and I will move ahead with the vote of thanks officially. Just a second. As we draw this enriching discussion to a close, it is my privilege and honor to express our heartfelt gratitude to everyone who made this panel a truly memorable occasion. We begin by thanking our distinguished panelists, Professor Dr. Anak, Agung, Banyu, Perwita, and Dr. Alok Yadav, for the time, their insights, and the remarkable clarity with which they have navigated some of the complex questions in contemporary geopolitics. You have given us much to think about, and we are deeply grateful for your generosity of knowledge. Since we have acquainted through this discussion, I would also formally invite you to Chennai one day, and perhaps we can have further discussions coming in the foreseeable future. Our sincere thanks to our Secretary, Mr. Udan Kumar Chodia, and Associate Secretary, Mr. Hemant P. Chodia, for their unwavering support and vision in fostering academic excellence at AMJC College. Events like this are possible only because of the institutional culture of intellectual curiosity we have nurtured. We are grateful to our Principal, Dr. Anak Narayanan, for his continued encouragement, and to Vice Principal, Dr. Elangovan, Dean, Dr. M.M. Ramya, and Deputy Dean, Dr. R. Sureka, for the guidance and steadfast support of the department's academic initiatives. A special word of appreciation for Mr. Gaurav Pandey, the HOD of Department of Defense and Strategic Studies, whose initiative and dedication brought this panel to life, and to all the faculty members and scholars who contributed to its organization. And finally, to our students, your engagement, your questions, and your presence today are the very reason we do what we do. The future of strategic thought is in good hands, and that is something I can say with confidence. Thank you all. We hope to see you at many more such conversations in the days ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Everybody.
sir.
Thank you, Gaurav,
Thank you, sir, madams.
coordinating. this
Thank you,
event.
everyone.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Namaste.
Namaste, sir.
Permission to leave.
Permission to leave.
You're free to leave.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Alok. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you.